Hey everybody, I'm going to go over my system a little bit, and then I'm going to put in the show notes links to different parts of the video so you can skip around if you don't want to listen to the whole thing. Appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe if you like this content. More coming soon. Links in the show notes. Hey everybody, purpose of this channel has always been to get you a way to make informed decisions on building your lineups. I have a little tweak to my system that's going to make things a little easier to understand. Try to put more of a number figure with each player each week. Should be a way to discern the best plays at each cap number and then also the best plays overall. So I'm going to explain what I'm doing and then we'll get right into game week 28 prep. So for those of you who watch regularly, you know I refer back to this worksheet a lot. This is my game log worksheet. This has every game played by every player in the league this season. We're going to use Bogdanovic for the example here. But for each player, I have a formula in this far column that's their standard deviation for their Sorare score. So every time they get a new Sorare score, it goes into this formula and it spits out this number. So this number tells us that their normal range of outcomes for a new score is going to fall somewhere between 9.4 points less than their season average and 9.4 points more than their season average. Well, we're looking for high-end upside. In Sorare, we want to look for the best possible outcomes. You're not going to win every week, but you want to give yourself the best chance to get the highest score. You want to win tier 4s and up, and obviously you want to win the best cards, which are the tier 1s or the cash or whatever they're offering for top prizes, and you're not going to win those without getting a really high score. If we look at Bogdanovic, you can see his range of scores here over the course of the season. My other sheet has all of his averages for the season, and that'll tell you what his average Sorare score would be. Formula here tells you his points per minute. I've inputted his L10 for this coming week, and then I have my standard deviation that I've moved over. I have his expected minutes, so this is based off of watching rotations, who's in, who's out, how many minutes has he been getting recently. I like to use the last 5 games as a general rule, but I will tweak this here and there just as I see fit. I've given him 31 minutes, and this tells us that if he is getting 31 minutes at 1.05 points per minute and his standard deviation is 9.4 over whatever this number would turn out to be, and that is 42.07. Then I have the number of games played this week. I also have a metric that tells us what the top end score minus the L10 is. This is where you can determine who the best plays of the week are. Doesn't matter what their L10s are. This will give you the biggest difference between the top end score and the L10. When we're comparing players at different levels, sometimes there are two that are very close. Okay, here's a good example. We have at 17, we have Dorian Finney-Smith from Brooklyn. We have Cole Anthony from Orlando. Patrick Williams is right here. They're all in that 31.8 to 31.46 range, so all very close. They all have 2 games. How do we decide what the best play is? Well, I think you can go a number of different ways here. I have Anthony at only 20 minutes because his minutes have been down. Doesn't mean they won't come back up. I would expect him to come back up at some point. He's the highest point per minute. He'd be my choice here, but you could certainly go with Dorian Finney-Smith, who's been getting more minutes. You can go with Patrick Williams, who gets more minutes. And it all depends on who you own, how much you're willing to spend. So what I'll do in these videos is for each L10 score, we'll go through pricing, why I think one might be a better play than another. So it should give you a good idea as to who you can use at what level. Hopefully that explains it a little bit. Beginning, we'll start at the bottom and work our way up. So this is for game week 28. Before we break it down by L10 threshold, we'll go through who the best overall plays are for game week 28. Starting at the top, it's De'Aaron Fox. So these are the biggest differences between the top end of their normal outcome range and their current L10. De'Aaron Fox has the biggest gap. Malcolm Brogdon not far behind him, and then a large gap down to the rest, where we have Anthony Simons, Anthony Edwards, Scotty Barnes, Trae Young. Derek White's a great play this week. 3 games. He's all the way down to 28. John Conchar is definitely in play at a 14. This kind of breaks it down, just gives you a list so you can take a quick peek at this or pause the video if you want to look at who is on this list and where they fall. The ones in green are the best for their particular L10, so I'll talk about them a little bit later. A lot going on over the weekend, so we'll be watching some things heading into Monday. This will give you an idea of who I like for game week 28. Bringing the micro tier with the 0 to 10 L10s. Really nothing at 1, nothing at 2, of worth anything that I project for any minutes. The only 3 I highlighted was Orlando Robinson and Miami, just because he's down to a 3 L10. That's really, really low. It would take an injury to Bam Adebayo or a rest day or something, but Robinson stood in for him before, played big minutes, and put up big points. This is a stash for sure. Right now, you're looking at $5.73, so it's an expensive stash. Philadelphia becomes really interesting this week. A 3-game week, all on the road, starting with a back-to-back tomorrow. They get Portland, then Golden State on a back-to-back. Maxey is questionable. Harris is questionable. Embiid is questionable. Melton's already been ruled out. Covington's been ruled out. So we've been going with backup guys here the last game, and then backups of backups. So if you're looking for some underdog plays who you want to take a flyer on, I think I have a couple for you. Furkan Korkmaz is a 4. He's been getting around 11 minutes, not much upside. About 11.4 I think is his high-end outcome if he gets those 11 minutes. But at a 4, at least usable in an underdog in a pinch. He's cheap, $1.58. KJ Martin's been getting some more minutes. He's been getting closer to 20, some games more, so you may get a nice upside with him. Top end for 17 minutes for him, I've got it only 15.85, so $2.49 if you want to add one of his. And Jaden Springer, also a 5, put him about 11 minutes, and he has more upside as a point per minute than Martin does, but less minutes usually. Put him right around the same 15 point though, about $2.13. So pick your poison with those guys. They may or may not get any run, but with 3 games this week, Portland, Golden State, and Utah all on the road, all good matchups, bad defensive teams. I think it's worth looking at for underdogs this week for sure. Dalen Terry in Chicago has been getting some minutes since Zach LaVine went out. Usually he gets about 9. I'd put his upside at about 13. So some of these other plays are probably better. He's a 6. Right now you can pick him up for $1.63. So if you want to go real cheap, Chicago has 2 games. At home against Toronto, and then on the road at Charlotte on a back-to-back. So I think Terry's probably in there at some point. Once we get up to 7, it gets kind of interesting. So we've got, I'm going to highlight Scottie Pippen here. So his minutes really depend on Luke Kennard being out. Kennard sat. Scottie Pippen played 24 minutes, had a big game, scored about 30 points. Next game, he didn't play at all. Kennard was back. Today, Sunday, Kennard out again. Pippen played 17 minutes and lost to the Pacers. So where do you put his minutes? It all depends on whether Luke Kennard plays or not. If we gave him 17, he's certainly capable of a big game. He has 2 games this week. A 36 is probably a little out of the realm of possibility for him. That's a really high-end outcome. His standard deviation is huge because I only have 2 games to work off of. He just got called up from the G League, so grain of salt with him. I've been working on my Dick jokes for Grady Dick for a long time. So here goes nothing. Toronto has just 1 game in Chicago. Dick's suddenly been thrust into the rotation here. He's obviously been working on his penetration. Early in the year, it was a lot of dribbling and not much scoring, but he's been taking it to the hole more. Okay, I'm done. He's been getting 12, 11, 16, 14, 21, and today he played 25. After the last 2 games, a 21 and a 25, I'm gonna actually up him to about 20 minutes. Makes him a decent play at 18. Now he's a rookie, so less Dick floating around than some of the others. There's another one. So, 772. You got money you want to spend on Dick. At 8, the only player I find remotely interesting is Davion Mitchell in Sacramento. He's suddenly started to get minutes. I just heard recently that they are showcasing him for a possible trade. They're coming back down. He played 22, then 15, then 11. So what do you peg him for? Going forward, I would say 12 to guess. If he gets 12, high-end outcome is about 15. So there are other plays I like better. 2 games for Sacramento this week. He may not play at all. Bigger risk with him than with some of the Sixers guys, I would think. Drew Eubanks becomes really interesting in Phoenix. Started tonight. Nurkic out. If Nurkic is out for an extended period, I think you're going to see that backup big man rotation start to move again. Chimezie Metu. We've had some Eubanks. We've had Keita Bates-Diop. All these guys running in and out. Nasir Little, that rotation of guys probably starts to churn again if Nurkic is out any extended period of time. Eubanks got the first crack. Phoenix got beat tonight pretty handily by Orlando, so I don't know if he's back in there. I've got him for 16 minutes. I think he played 29 tonight, so obviously there's upside. If he gets that many minutes, if we put in 29, his upside could be as high as like a 33, which would obviously be great for a 9. I think he's very much in play this week. You could roll the dice and take a chance on him for sure. I'm not going to put that many minutes on him though. We'll put him back to 16. Still makes him the best play at 9. The other 9 that's interesting is Ochai Agbaji in Utah. He just gets regular minutes despite being really unproductive. So if you look at his last 5 games, he's somewhere in that 17 range. You don't know what you're going to get night to night. Could be a little more, could be a little less. I'm going to give him 17. If you give him 17, he's right around 20 points. With a 9, that's at least playable. But at a 0.66 point per minute, that's not a guy I'm real high on. And as we look at prices, Davion Mitchell is at $249. You've got Agbaji at $295. And Eubanks at $315. I think Eubanks at $315 is a nice buy right here. And the last 2 micro caps I want to cover are Christian Braun and Ben Shepherd, both 10s. Braun gets regular minutes in Denver. I would put him right around 15. I think that's a really accurate estimate. That puts him as a 21.3 for a high-end upside. For a 10, that's decent. 2 games this week. Ben Shepherd in Indiana, also 2 games this week. Been getting slightly more minutes, but I think his minutes are a little more fickle. TJ McConnell was out today with personal reasons. Obviously, Halliburton's been out, so backcourt minutes have been there for Indiana players. He may dry up when Halliburton comes back or McConnell comes back. He's actually played pretty well, better than I thought he would. Put him right in the same range of 21 if he can get those minutes. So those are your 2 plays at 10. Price-wise, Braun is $350 and Shepherd is $450. So I'm leaning Braun if you're going between those 2. Breaking into the mid-caps, Grant Williams had the outlier of outlier games over the weekend. As you can see, this 60 kind of sticks out in his range of outcomes here. I would not expect that again, but if he did it once, at least it means he's capable of it. 7 3-pointers, 9 out of 16, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and a block. That's a hell of a game. He'd be the best play at 11 right now, regardless of that game. The standard deviation I have was calculated before the weekend, so even without that game, I put him at about 25.6 and 22 minutes. That's a low-end estimate right now. After coming off that huge game, he's probably going to play more in the high 20s, I would say, next couple of games. 2 games this week. If we move him up into the upper 20s, let's say we give him 27. You're looking at a guy that can score you about 29 points at an 11, which is why his price has gone all the way up to $7.20. He was pretty cheap before the weekend. If we move on to 12s, I've been talking up Lonnie Walker for a while, and he just cannot break anything more than backup minutes right now. They're giving him about 13 a night, which is too bad because he is a productive guy when he's out there. Just can't get in the flow of the game right now. I'm a little down on him, unfortunately. 2 games this week. You can give him a try if you want. He's a little higher rated than my other 12, which is Marcus Morris. But as we talked about before with Philadelphia, a lot of guys banged up, including Embiid, and 3 good matchups on the road. I think Morris is going to play quite a bit this week. He's a 12 right now. I think he can get you in the mid-20s pretty easily. I think he can hit higher than that on occasion, so I wouldn't be afraid to deploy him this week. New York gets interesting with the Julius Randle injury. It looks like he's going to be out until late February, probably about a month. Achua is about the same size as Randle, and he's a skilled offensive player. He just doesn't play much defense, so the fear for me is that he gets into Tom Thibodeau's doghouse for not playing hard enough on defense and then doesn't see the floor. But I think this week with 3 games, they're going to have to play him, and his L10's low at 13, so you can throw him right out there. I would expect him to get at least in the mid-20s in minutes, putting his top end for 25 minutes at just under 30, and a 13, that's excellent. Right now, he's $7.72, so his price has increased. People are onto that. John Conchar has been playing really well with extended minutes in Memphis. He's had scores in the high 20s and the low 30s pretty regularly. So 14 is not hard to justify for him. I think he's one of the best plays of the week. 33.84 for a top end. That's actually attainable. He did it a couple times already. 2 games for Memphis. You can get him out there if you got one. Price on him right now is about $6. At 15, we've got Reggie Jackson in Denver. Just a regular rotation player. Been struggling a little bit with a toe injury. His production's been a little worse than normal, but his minutes are still there. If he can work through that, going to get his 22 minutes, which is right where I put him. Giving him a top end of 31.5 with the 15. That's certainly playable and much better than anyone else in this range. All right, moving along with the mid caps at 16, we have Dean Wade in Cleveland. Thad Young only has 1 game, slightly higher top end, but with 3 games for Dean Wade, I'm going to take him in that 16 spot. with a top end a little over 28. Price on him right now is only $2.38. At 17, it's kind of an interesting one. We have Dorian Finney-Smith and Cole Anthony right around the same area here. Anthony's been getting really low minutes. Tonight he only played 10 minutes. He actually picked up 3 fouls in 2 minutes, came out in the first half, only got in for 8 minutes in the second half. Game got out of reach. He's going to have a resurgence at some point. He's too good a player to be playing 10 minutes a night, so I'd still expect him to get at least 20 most nights. 2 games this week. Put him right with Dorian Finney-Smith, even though Finney-Smith plays a lot more minutes. Finney-Smith had a really nice game over the weekend. We missed that outlier. Well, let's check prices. DFS is $339, Anthony at $378, so very close in price. Simone in Utah. 0.79 a minute, not real productive. Expected minutes, though, about 26. He's been getting mid-20s since he joined the rotation, joined the starting 5. 32 for top end. Not great, but not horrible. Best one at 18 right now, and he is only $3.40. Skipping 19s because I just don't like any of these. 1 game for Wiggins. 1 game for Gary Trent. Derek Jones is injured. Scoot Henderson is injured. You could play Markelle Fultz. He's got 2 games. He's a 19. Top end of 29. Sure, throw him in there. Moving on to 20s, I've got Malik Beasley from Milwaukee. Just a good high-end upside guy that has a lot of bad games, has a lot of good games. Just if he gets hot from 3, he's worth rostering 36 for a top end on a 20s, not bad. You can get Beasley for $4.31, so he would be my best 20. Josh Hart's interesting at 20 also. With Randall going out, if they end up sticking him at the power forward spot, he's a really undersized power forward, but I can see that happening, which would mean he'd get even more minutes than he normally does. I pegged him for 28. Let's say he starts playing huge minutes and getting 36, his top end goes up to 36. So he could be up there with Beasley with some more minutes. But for right now, I'd get the cheaper player in Beasley. Although I love me some Santi Aldama in Memphis, the best play at 21 for me this week is Max Strus in Cleveland. Minutes were down a little bit for a little while, but they've come roaring back to 34 and 35 the last 2 games. I think you can peg him for at least like 33 minutes. That puts his high-end upside up over the 40 mark, which is an awesome one for 21. So 3 games this week. Everything lines up for Strus. I'd say he's very good at 21. At 22, you saw PJ Washington just explode over the weekend. 2 games for him. I'm putting him at 32 minutes. I think he's going to play a lot with all the departures and the injuries in Charlotte. 0.92 a minute, so he's pretty decent. His top end up over 40. Obviously, he had an outlier for 60-something, I think, over the weekend, so he's capable of big things. We've got Spencer Dinwiddie at 23. He's been in play for a couple weeks now. I've got his top end over 40. 2 games for the Nets. Walker Kessler in Utah has 3 games. I've got his top end at 37. And then in the 25 range, you've got your play of the week. It's Malcolm Brogdon. He's got 2 games. He came back today from injury, so hopefully he's okay. 25 for an L10, real low for him. His projected top end outcome is over 52. This is a great play this week if you can get your hands on a Brogdon, like him and Simons with those 2 games. Price-wise, Kessler's your cheapest. Strus still under $5. Dinwiddie still under 6. Washington just over 6, and you can get a Brogdon right now for $6.35. I would be all over that if I had more than $2.02 in my account. Bummer. And finishing up the upper end of the mid caps here with the 26 through 30s, Kevin Huerter is a 26. He's been playing a lot more minutes. He's been consistently scoring pretty well. 0.94 a minute's pretty good. Top end estimate for 33 minutes for him is right around 45. So he's the lead dog at 26. Sacramento with 2 games this week. I like Dante DiVincenzo at 27. 3 games this week. Slightly lower projection than Daniel Gafford and Buddy Hield, but I think that 26 minutes could come up with Randall going down with injury. I think his usage could go up. If he could crack like 32 minutes here, we're looking at a high-end estimate of like 46. 3 games for New York. I think he's a good buy at 27 this week. Derek White in Boston. Big gap here between his projection and his L10. He is 1.06 points a minute. He's had some bad games recently, but he's certainly capable of something big. 28 just too low. Anthony Simons in Portland. We talk about him a lot. He threw up a 60 piece over the weekend for you if you were playing him. High-end outcome 51.7, so an outlier with the 60, but everybody's getting big minutes in Portland and 2 games for them this upcoming week. And then at 30, I have Tim Hardaway Jr., and I think he can certainly get you into the 40s, maybe even the 50s on a good night. 30 L10s playable for him. Price-wise, DiVincenzo is pretty cheap. I think this is a good spot to get him at 340. Through these blue chips and get this over with because this is probably the longest video I've ever done. I've been sick for 2 weeks and I'm falling asleep here. Devin Vassell at 31. Best of the 31s. He's right there with Miles Turner. Miles screwed me over the weekend and he's hurt. So I'm going to go with Vassell for 31. 32, I've got Brandon Ingram. This is really low for him. 48.5 projection for high end. Pretty good. Anthony Edwards is a 33. Yes. Yes, please. 55.5 top end. He put up a 60-something over the weekend. 2 games for the Wolves. He's playing really well. 33 is way too low. Jeremy Grant in Portland. De'Aaron Fox at 35. Great play. 2 games for Sacramento. You'd certainly get him in there. Scotty Barnes, 36. Only 1 game. So be careful. James Harden at 37. He's been good. 52 for a high end. 2 games. Slightly better than Claxton and Chet. Jamal Murray's at 38. I think you can play him. He's got a pretty good edge on Kuzma. D'Angelo Russell at 39. Beats out guys like Vooch and DeJounte Murray and Rudy Gobert. D'Angelo's just been playing out of his mind lately. High end of over 52 for him. Mikal Bridges at 40. Not a great play. Trae Young at 41 is a great play, but only has 1 game. LeBron at 41. Also a really good play and has 3 games. Just had probably his best game of the year. So may want to consider him. Bam at 42. Decent upside on him. 2 games. Karl Anthony Towns at 43. We're running into a spot where he's a little too high, but still the best 43. Jalen Brunson at 44. Maybe some more usage for him. So 3 games, no Randall. May want to work him into those MVPs. Lauri Markkanen in Utah is up to 45. Not a whole lot of upside here for him, but 3 games. Jason Tatum's a 46, also 3 games. And then you've got Davis, upside over 60. He's 48. So for your top end guys, he's probably your best play. And then you got your superstars. All right, we'll cut it there. Hope you enjoyed having the actual number projections. I like having something to show you, some kind of estimate to look at. Hopefully everything made sense. Of course, if it doesn't, you can always comment, ask me questions. Happy to answer them. Good luck here in Game Week 28, and we'll be back tomorrow, Monday night, around lock time, with everything updated and a Game Week 29 that gets you ahead of the game. Thanks for watching Sorare Edge. Take care.